Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be going over another Neville Goddard lecture. This one's titled Shaping of the Unbegotten. It has a wonderful message and one I'd like to share with you guys. So I'll go through, I'll paraphrase the lecture, and we'll talk about it as we go. Now, the shaping of the unbegotten is a concept that was introduced by Neville in a lecture in 1963. The central idea of this concept is that we, as human beings, are meant to imitate God and to be His dear children. For we are being raised to become God ourselves. To do so, we must understand what God is and what God did. He quotes Romans 4:17 saying, quote, "He called a thing not seen as though it were, and the unseen became seen," unquote. This was a creative act of mercy, and the Bible tells us that eternity exists, and all things in eternity are independent of creation. Neville then asserts that he has had a vision, and through it he came to know that the poet William Blake was telling the truth when he said that many people believe that before creation, all there was solitude and chaos. However, Blake also said that eternity exists, and all things in eternity are independent of creation, which was an act of mercy. Neville argues that this idea is not believed by scientists today, who think of the world purely as evolved from chaos. Right? Everything I learned in school was about entropy and about the world emerging out of complete chaos. It was started with the Big Bang, and then it continued through the evolution of the species here on Earth. All of this was supposedly just dumb luck of the chaotic world circumstances as they were. Yet all spiritual knowledge points the other direction. It points to the will of God, the order of the spiritual world, and the everlasting continuance of eternity of everything in existence. Now, Neville goes on to explain that everything in this world is forever. The body, this day, this lecture that's being communicated, and everything else is part of the eternal structure of eternity. It always was, and it always will be. A way I like to think of this is, although the physical forms of the world will rise and dissolve again and again into new forms, the state of those forms exists in the eternal present moment, in cosmic memory. All these states that ever have been or will be exist in the memory of God, in the cosmic memory of imagination and higher thought life. This eternal memory is often referred to as the Akasha. Now, according to Neville, God is shaping Himself, the unbegotten, by begetting Himself in us. When God completes the act of begetting Himself in us, we become God. We become the creator with the same structure that God used to create anything that we can conceive of. This is the real foundation of Neville's teachings, that through you coming to know your divine nature, you become an active creator in the unfolding of the world. Therefore, through rising in your development, you can develop spiritual cognition that gives you the power to shape your life and bring about anything you desire. Neville tells us that we should imitate God as dear children. Everything exists independent of creation, and as such, we can create just like God did. He says you cannot think of something that doesn't exist. Anything you think of, no matter how abstract or silly, is still something that exists in this very moment in your mind. Therefore, your thought, your state is in the imagination of God. He says there was a time when you and I as living souls did not exist, but the structure, this garment, always existed. These garments existed. Everything in the world existed, but we as living souls did not. And then God begot us just like Himself to become a creative being just as He is. You take the same structure and then create and create and create. So be ye imitators of God as dear children. How did he create? Well, this is how he creates. He called a thing that is not seen as though it were seen, and the unseen became seen. That's how he does it. Neville then explains that we can bring into our mind's eye any being that exists and arrange it in any way we want, shaping the unformed upon the formed. We can control the entire moment of time, making it as long or as short as we want, and arrange the imagery in such a way that it implies something other than what it was prior to the arrangement. He says God is molding himself upon man, and when he has completed the act as he desires, there are 3 definite stages where he reveals the completed work. He molds us and molds us and molds us, making us ever more sensitive, ever more creative, ever more like himself. And when he is satisfied that we are just like he is, he unveils his work. The unveiling of the work begins with the awakening of himself, and that is called the resurrection. He awakes in the individual in whom he has completed the work, and that awakening in the Bible is the resurrection. Then, after the resurrection, he goes through an act like a birth. He is born again from above, and he is self-begotten, because the individual who is born cannot conceive of being by any other one than himself. He can't for one moment, when he awakes in the tomb of his skull, believe that he is other than himself. And when he comes out of his own skull, he cannot have any feeling, any sensation, or have any father or mother. So if he is born, then he must be self-begotten. God is begetting himself. That when he begets himself, the thing begotten is God, and he comes out just self-begotten. He then says that only then do you realize who you are. You realize that you are the Father. You are the Father of God's only begotten Son, and he knows who he is. It took the Son to reveal to him who he really is. So to wrap this lecture up, the shaping of the unbegotten is a concept that says that we can imitate God by creating just as he did. We are part of the eternal structure of eternity and can shape ourselves and our lives upon everything that has already been formed. We are awakening to the divine nature in us, which is the Christ, and through becoming Christ, you resurrect the Father. While these mental pictures can be challenging to comprehend, I invite you to withhold judgment and to remain patient while these thought pictures work upon your soul. Spiritual development cannot be rushed. We must slowly learn to disentangle the mind and our whole orientation from the physical world. We then grow slowly into a new paradigm, a new realm, a higher reality. From there, a whole new form of self-expression unfolds. Now, I am here to help you and me understand these ideas. By coming together and exploring these lectures, we can bring about the latent capacities residing within all of us. Now, I'm going to be making many more videos on spiritual development and transformation, and I hope you join me on those future videos. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.